Kirk Herbstreit.
Money, the amount of money, like what's the difference as a player in saying these games are meaningless when, Des, we played in quote-unquote meaningless games. I mean, I know you guys were here a lot, but I just don't understand. If you don't make it to the playoff, how is it meaningless to play football and compete? Isn't that what we do as football players? We compete. So I don't know if changing and expanding it is going to change anything. I really don't. I think this era of player just doesn't love football.
Gives a lot of terrible takes.
Kirk Herbstreit is the most powerful college football voice there is. And what he said was keep the system the way that it was so that it conveniences me and us and not the players.
Which many in sports media fact check.
When you're a quarterback at Alabama, you see that lovely lady there. She does go to Auburn, I want to admit that. But she also Miss Alabama, and that's A.J. McCarron's girlfriend, okay? And right there on the right is Dee Dee Bonner. That's A.J.'s mom. Wow, I'm telling you, quarterbacks, you get all the good-looking women. What a beautiful woman. Wow.
A.J.'s doing some things right down in
Tuscaloosa.
Never forget him gushing over a college student.
Love of football has gotten Kirk Herbstreit all of the things that he wanted from life. And now because kids won't play in a made-for-television stupidity that is college football during a pandemic, Herbstreit has to apologize and walk back the idea that he's telling kids that are sitting out bowl games that they owe him something as the only guy at ESPN who gets to fly in a private jet because of what flies over as injustice, that sport. He's telling the kids they don't love the game because they're opting out of bowl games. As I'm watching bowl games all over the place, and I'm alarmed by the number of injuries.
Now, he's decided to weigh in on another topic. When asked, do men belong in women's sports, he replied, of course not. Ridiculous question. Now, I'm going to tell you why. This question is textbook terrible framing to pigeonhole someone. But let's hear from Kirk Herbstreit first on a certain network, which might be a tell.
I think I've been biting my tongue on a lot of topics for 3 years. I sent a tweet out. I get pretty quiet in the off season. I sent a tweet out about something. It might've been about college football coming up. And I've gotten into a habit of not scrolling and looking at the comments because it's obviously pretty bad. And so I happened to see somebody say what he said. I think he said, should men be able to play in women's sports? And I just was like, I'm just going to give a quick answer. Ridiculous question. Of course not. I didn't dwell on it. I didn't give a long answer. That was it. And I didn't realize it would be way more positive than negative. I'm sure people were upset about it. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. I don't have a daughter. I have 4 sons. If I had a daughter, I'd probably be way more outspoken about the discussion and the topic.
Let's pause here. He was asked about this by Dan Dockich, former basketball player at my alma mater and coach, Indiana University. He has said many terrible things, which we'll get into. First, more from Herbstreit.
I'm done giving any at all about any of it. When it comes to, it's almost like there are 2 different sets of rules. And if you have a view that's a little bit more traditional, or I'm a Christian guy, it's like there's a different set of rules for that viewpoint, and it's hard to just turn the other cheek time after time after time. So yeah, I didn't really care.
Pause here. You had to know this was coming. You had to know. You could have easily predicted that someone like Kirk Herbstreit, to justify what he said, would use religion as a shield for bigotry. More.
So yeah, I didn't really care. I don't care at all, which is a good thing. I think it's good and healthy to get to that place compared to, oh gosh, I don't want to get canceled. I don't want to get people upset. I don't give a I'm just going to say certain things. My problem is I have a temper. And so if I get to that point, if that fuse gets lit, I let it go and then I'll explode and say something. So that I have to be careful of.
Yeah,
That's why I live vicariously through you. I live vicariously through you too, and God bless you.
Yeah, I like being.
He lives vicariously through Dan Dakich, a man who has said this.
All right. Indian headdress is seen, ladies and gentlemen, as a honor, honoring the Chiefs.
Which is false.
My problem with Kaepernick is when I started watching him and listening, he's stupid. Now, it's the best interest of you, so you can win an ESPY, so you can be a victim.
Which is hateful.
But again, you're a middle-aged white guy. You better be very, very careful. There's going to be misogyny. Well, there already was, but it always came from one side. There's going to be racist. Well, you ever read Joy Reid's tweets? You don't think that's racist as hell? What are you, nuts? You ever see what comes out of the mouth of Jalen Rose? You don't think that's racist as hell? What are you talking about? It's okay when it was coming from one side. It's okay when opinions coming from one side kind of met with the opinions of those running Twitter, but isn't free speech about both sides?
Which is idiotic. In addition, Dan Dakich, a full-on member of MAGA, argued free education is sufficient compensation, while the NCAA and schools generate billions off the backs of student athletes. He would attack black athletes, suggesting college athletes couldn't be broke because they can afford tattoos. He'd feature a photo of Kentucky basketball player Derek Willis to prove his point. At one point, Dakich mocked the appearance of a young Iowa State Cyclones fan, an amputee who had recently died, on Twitter. And before he briefly deleted his Twitter account after another controversial tweet, belittling a college professor in Pennsylvania for her stance on paying college athletes, Dakich would suggest that the professor wanted to sleep with him. From the Indy Star, Dakich now fancies himself a political talking head, adding a second daily show on a right-wing radio station that specializes in conspiracy theories, half-truths, outright lies, and hate. His handful of supporters tell him he's wise, and he does eat it up. He retweets it, he replies to it, he favorites it, he loves it. So, that's the man Kirk Herbstreit says he lives vicariously through. Also a tell. I don't know, man. I really just don't appreciate someone mocking a disabled person. I just don't. I don't think that when I disagree with somebody, I think they're only doing it and trying to get under my skin because they're trying to sleep with me. God, man. So, let's go back to the framing of that question, though. That set all of this off because it is incredibly dishonest and serves a purpose for the conservative right from awful announcing the small group of trans athletes who have been used and dragged into a culture war understand all of this. There are valid arguments on both sides of the trans athlete debate, but the disingenuous question of do men belong in women's sports shouldn't be the conversation starter. No, it should not. Trans people, I believe, make up roughly, if even 1% of the American population, where we have some 335 plus million people. This issue has been driven to create a wedge in the electorate in how they vote. In addition, as we have seen over the years, if it is not black people, if it is not Jewish people, if it is not gay people, they will always, conservatives, pick a fight with a marginalized group for votes and for clout. The entryway of this one specific question is dishonest. What it does is it opens up the floodgates to then go after, no matter the label, no matter the person, and attack them relentlessly and continue to push a marginalized group out. There was a phenomenal video that Pablo Torre did on Metalark Media, his YouTube channel and podcast, Pablo Torre Finds Out, where they went to one state in the union and went over the story of how a person is being targeted for being trans. And it is a softball player who is really, 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 really bad. And there is not even an underlying theme, but there is a theme overall of why many who are in the trans community decide to play sports. It is so they could create community, so they could have a kinship with the student body, so they can have something to look forward to, so they can build relationships, so they could have fun. A lot of these people are not good at sports. They are not. But what Herbstreit clearly does not understand or does not care to understand is that by even giving this question attention, you are opening up the floodgates, not just to yourself internally, but also your millions of followers across social media, that it is okay to discriminate when it is not. It is not. It is a bad faith question, but I now have a question for Kirk Herbstreit. When you say you are traditional, which is, let's be very clear, inserted into a sentence to mask other things that come with conservatism, especially in the year 2024. My question is, what sort of traditions are you talking about? Are you talking about the traditional family, where you believe you cannot have same-sex marriages? When you saw Harrison Butker's speech, do you applaud the homemaker line? These are just a few questions, you know. I remember hearing Mike Pence talking about having, you know, traditional values, and then also, per the reports, supporting gay conversion therapy. Do you? I am not saying that he does these things. I'm saying I look forward to him speaking out more, because then we will truly learn who Kirk Herbstreit is and what his traditional values really mean. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports, and or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.